Welcome back, Mastercrafted Gaming fans. Kyle here for the last installment of the previews that are in the core book for Kings of War version 3, and it's a 2-for-1 special. Today I'm going to bring you the Abyssal Dwarfs and the Forces of the Abyss. For the Abyssal Dwarfs, let's start off with the Immortal Guard. This is a unit that is extremely tough with defense 5 and fearless nerve values, -17 on the regiment. And to aid that sturdiness even further, there's now been the addition of regeneration 5+ on them. So they still maintain vicious and they're pretty good use of attacks heading on 3 up, but now they're going to be a really solid unit that's really hard to shift within your battle line. So proper placement, proper deployment means that you've got a unit that's going to be very difficult to take off the board and really stick around for 160 points in a regiment. That's amazing. Next, let's look at the Decimators. This is a unit that in the prior edition had a breath attack that was, super beneficial, but now that's sort of changed, and you'll see that similar to other units in the game. This is a steady aimed regular ranged attack now, and a couple of major changes to them, in my opinion, are the change from 5+ to 4+ to hit and melee. That makes this much more lucrative to actually get them into position, use those attacks, those ranged attacks before you can actually charge to great effect. So they project a lot higher of a threat range, even though they're a little bit slower at speed 4. You've also got this really neat upgrade option that if you don't want to move or early in the game, you can sit still and use this rocket launcher to put out some long-range damage early in the game. So those high targets in the backfield for your opponent are going to be much harder to stay away from something like this, especially if you pair it with some of the Abyssal Dwarves' wonderful war engines that they have available to them. So really nice complement unit, and something that I think if you wanted to build that style of a list, you could do so really well with these guys. Let's take a look at the good old logs, lesser Obsidian Golems. In 2nd edition, this was a very standard unit. Defense 6, they're on monstrous infantry bases, so that means that they're 50 by 50. That made them a little bit harder to maneuver into certain spaces, but with Shambling and Surge, that's a really nice complement to being able to position them better and then still complete the charge. So this is very similar to what we've seen with the Northern Alliance Ice Elementals and that breath attack that they have available to them. The Lesser Obsidian Golems now have a purchasable upgrade where they can use some ranged attacks before they get into combat. So if you would want to move them up into position, pop off that ranged attack with the upgrade and then surge in after that, you've got a way to sort of double tap on your damage. And anything like that is able to put out a lot of hurt very quickly. So defense 6 makes it pretty hard to take off too. So depending on what your opponent is throwing out in front of them, that's a really easy way to possibly clean up one unit and then surge into another. You never know. Next, and by special request, we're going to look at the Hellhound. This is a new unit for the Abyssal Dwarfs in 3rd edition, and one that we've got a new model coming out for fairly soon. So keep your eyes peeled for the new Abyssal Dwarf released next year. This guy has all the things. His nickname for me is Oprah, because he is just going to be handing out all kinds of bonuses to everyone around him. So not only is the aura of Brutal the dwarves that are nearby, that's a fantastic thing that, just really adds to the damage output that they can possibly do in combat. On top of that, you have the ability to shoot with some ranged attacks with those pistols. And then even beyond that, you can purchase an upgrade option that gives an aura of Wild Charge, which is just nuts. So all of a sudden, you've got a great support unit that can throw out all kinds of fun toys and extra bonuses to the army around him, and he's no slouch on his own. So defense 6 and that kind of a profile is going to be putting out a lot of hurting. Even though he's a lot of points, I think there's a good amount of people that are going to want to take this guy in their army just based on what he can do and what he can do to benefit the army around him. The Abyssal Dwarf Overmaster is a pretty standard hero in Kings of War 3rd edition, but with some different tweaks and upgrades, he makes for a really nasty unit. So you've got the ability, obviously, to take the wings, similar if you'd want to, and drop his defense a little bit. But if you want to, you can purchase this particular upgrade, which allows him to give Strider to the units that are around him in an aura. And if you're going to have these guys on foot, the ability to maintain that defense 6 and put out a Strider, aura around that unit, you can essentially position guys in a place where if there's terrain on the battlefield, right when you're deploying, you know exactly how you can put them out and sort of take advantage of those things, and your opponent can't use the terrain to their advantage. So for dwarves in particular, if you suffer that hindered charge, that's a big deal. So giving Strider on a simple bonus like that, and then still having a no slouch combat character, is a really nice change and upgrade for 3rd edition. Now let's take a look at the Forces of Abyss in 3rd edition Kings of War. And the first thing that I wanted to show you guys is the army item upgrade, essentially. So this is the Sacrificial Imp. It's a upgrade that essentially gives any of the units that have regeneration the ability to purchase this in different varying point levels for the one-off chance to re-roll any of your failed regeneration rolls. Now, this is a huge bonus, especially on an army that has regeneration all over the place. And if you really suffer the hurt in one turn but survive the nerve test, on that next turn you pop this item and then all of a sudden you could be healed tremendously based on just the regeneration rolls alone. Not going into account what else you can do with drain life and other things that I will show you soon. So a really nice upgrade. I think that as far as this is concerned, the army still has the Fury, so this is a great new addition and just a cool thing that you get to kill a little imp in the middle of the battle to reroll your regeneration. That's just a cool rule. The Forces of the Abyss had a fairly early preview where a page, at least the first page of their unit entries, were leaked early on. So I decided, I think for this preview, I'd like to show you some of the units that are further on in the book listing for them. And we'll start off with Mulux, because this is a unit that I think a lot of people wanted to like and use and love, but it needed just a little bit of help. It's got that now in a couple of very key points. So it is now hitting on 3+, which is fantastic. It has lost its nerve gap of 3 points from 15 to 18, and it got bumped to a tighter nerve gap of 16 to 18. And the speed got bumped from 5 to 6. So these guys are now moving a significantly amount faster. They hit harder, and they are a little bit harder to waver and kind of mess up with shooting and that sort of thing with their lower defense. You've also got the ability, if you want to purchase Brutal and a Fearless nerve, just in case you wanted to completely not worry about it whatsoever. Fury's great for combat, but not so much for shooting. So this is a really nice unit that you can kind of cater to how you'd want to use them and how you'd want to screen them and get them into combat, but they're just a lot more effective on their own now that they've got these tiny changes to their combat profile. Next, let's look at the Hellhounds. This is a unit that only came in a troop profile in 2nd edition, so now with a full regiment profile, and a ton of attacks, they've got some really nice options to them. So speed is something that comes at a premium in 3rd edition, especially when it's paired with nimble. So if you see this unit, this is the perfect type of unit that is meant to take advantage of those new hill rules, where it can essentially get to where a hill is on the table, park itself up there, and then get a charge in the following turn at a huge charge distance, get a bonus to its thunderous charge, and then throwing out something like 25 24 attacks on its regiment profile. That's fantastic. So still able to use it as a troop option if you have that currently, and use it to screen things and still be able to project a great amount of attacks and threat range with it. But the regiment also now gives you a new option that you'd want to have for an offensive capability as well. So take a look at what you can do with them, because I think it's a really good nimble, fast unit that really threatens a lot of things that the Abyssals need with speed. Now let's take a look at one of the more popular units, the 2nd edition in the Cronius. This Titan is now a unit that saw a little bit of tweaks in the sense that the Tempest rule is now just Cloak of Death, so we've introduced that to other units in the game, and now that rule slots in perfectly as the way it was working before. With a Fearless profile and an automatic D6+6 attacks, this thing is still doing what it does well, and you've got the ability to purchase an improved drain life option on it too. So when I mentioned the Fury rule and sticking into combat, and then also the regeneration capabilities that you'd have with Sacrificial Imp, you toss in drain life, and all of a sudden you've got some pretty decent heals in an Abyssal army. So the Abyssal Archfiend was almost never taken without wings. The formation tried to promote it in 2nd edition, but it still didn't really go that well. So now we just have a new profile and a Titan class for the Abyssal Fiend. So it fits into a monster category, not necessarily a hero monster. And I think that the point value for this guy is real steal. So with speed 7, fireball built into him, hitting on 3s and defense 5 with 7 attacks, that's a really nice complement to the units that are around him, because he still inspires. He still has Fury, great crushing strength, that sort of thing. So a real heavy hitter kind of unit that doesn't take up, a hero space, but still inspires. So that's pretty fantastic. Yes, I know that monsters and heroes kind of fall in the same place, but unlocks are slightly different in 3rd edition. So I think that you guys will appreciate what this can do for you. I think this is a really nice unit, especially at that point level. I think we're going to see a lot of them. And if you've bought the model or want to use something that doesn't have the wings attached to it, this is a really good option for it. And I think it's going to be very popular. Last but certainly not least is the Manifestation of Baal. This thing is a discount city now. Living Legend unit that is 95 points cheaper and still comes with some of its better rule options. I don't think it was taken as much because of the extensive point value that it had in second edition. So the tweaks that it took to balance that out were very, comparable. I think that it's something that a lot of people will be okay with. From the Pit I Curse Thee is one of the coolest rules in the game. Yes, you can only use it once, but you just essentially shout and everything gets disordered around you, which is just a really, really scary idea of what could possibly happen. So I think it's a really nice thing to have. I think it's a unit that a lot of people are going to put on the table now and have good options for, especially at that price point. That's just fantastic price point. So really nice monster that's going to round out the Abyssal Force, which, you got to have big crazy demon things in an Abyssal army, right? So that is it for the previews for the core rulebook and 3rd edition Kings of War. I told you guys I would do a preview for the Uncharted Empires book that's coming out. I will not be doing that this Thursday. I will be doing that on Tuesday of next week. I think that's the 29th. We're going to do that with a couple of different blog posts. And the preview is not going to be a preview of the army similar to what this is. We will do that eventually. But the preview is mostly going to be explaining how theme lists work, how the book is going to tie into the core rulebook, and those sort of things. So I think it's just more of an introduction to how the book is going to work and how it all looks. I think it's really something that's coming together very nicely. Matt Gilbert and the design studio with Dave Simmons and all the rules testers, play testers, rules committee, all that stuff are doing a really good job on this. And I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with what they're going to see. And even though it's slightly different, it's a lot of good. So very excited to show that preview to you. And it'll be next, or not next week, but the following week, because I'm going on vacation. I'm going to Disney World. I'm done with you guys. I'm sick of doing this. This is just way too much work for me. I'm out. See ya.